Okay, it's now 3 minutes past the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning or afternoon, wherever you might be. My name is Julian Diaz. I'm CMO of Skynamo, the all-in-one field sales app. We're sponsoring today's session, but today the spotlight is on the Natural Marketing Institute and the insights they've collected on dietary supplement trends for 2021. Your presenters today are Steve French, Senior Vice President of the Natural Marketing Institute, and Josh Witt, VP of Skynamo, sponsors of today's session. Second. So you'll see on your screen, we have a short poll, if you don't mind just completing that poll before we get going. It should just take a few seconds to respond. You can remove the poll from your screen by clicking on the X on the top right when you're finished. If you have any technical questions or issues or comments, please use the chat option at the bottom of your screen. Please use the Q&A option to submit your questions. We'll answer as many as time allows for at the end of the session. We'll make sure we'll get all the answers to your questions offline, and we'll send those through after the session. And now let's hand over to Josh Witt, Vice President of Skynamo, sponsors of today's session. Josh?
Thanks, Julian. So as Julian mentioned, we're excited to partner and sponsor with NMI today on this webinar. And to kick us off, I'll just briefly overview who Skynamo is and the organizations that we typically partner with, so everybody can get a little bit familiar with who we are. If you want to go to the next slide, Julian. So before jumping directly into Skynamo, though, I'll set the landscape a little bit. So there are a few dynamics affecting the sale and distribution of consumer goods today. And first and foremost, the one that we're probably almost well aware of and familiar with is the move to e-commerce. What most organizations either don't know or just now realizing, though, is that the push to get their products online, most consumers will still purchase their goods in person before going online. So it brings us back to this point of sale relationship and educating the retailer and ensuring that our reps out in the field are pushing the most high priority products at the appropriate times. The struggle that we're hearing is over 20% of sales managers in the consumer goods space have stated they don't have visibility into where their reps are spending their time, what they're using to push products, and what products they're pushing. Next slide, Jules. So it goes into why we actually built Skynamo. We're the world's first and only all-in-one sales software for the vitamins and supplement space that's fully integrated into our customers' tech stack, including their ERP. So we have a native mobile application that we're enabling reps in the field to ensure they're seeing the most relevant customers that day, planning their route in the most efficient and effective way possible, understanding what they last talked about with that customer and what they should be discussing that day, and promoting the right products with the right collateral once they're on site, all enabled by the ability to submit purchases seamlessly at the direct point with the customer through our application, which then transfers back into their ERP system. And then for the managers and those coaching the reps out in the field, our mobile desktop is structured to provide them with insight into the reps day-to-day to help them coach on how to best structure their time and represent both the company and its products in the strongest way possible. So they get insights into things like customers visited, orders submitted, notes made during the visit, and other intricate details on things centered around their reps' ordering process. Next slide there, Jules. So we'll send out the recording of this afterwards, and I'll save that for you guys to dive into these statistics in more detail if you want to. But there are two that we're really proud of here that our customers are achieving after activating Skynamo, and that being we're seeing an average of an increased sales of 25% on an annual basis across our customers after rolling out Skynamo, and a savings of 2 hours less per day spent on administrative work across all of their team members in the field and also their management team. Next slide, Jules. And then here, just a quote from one of our customers, Enzymedica. So we're really excited to partner with Enzymedica, and Paul, their CRO, had mentioned that face-to-face selling was a core competence of their business. Part of the rep's job was to transfer enthusiasm and teach store employees how to sell, and that's really something that they found you can only do in person. So Skynamo became part of their strategy. It gave their reps the digital tools to go into the stores and act as advisors to the stores, as well as protect stores from digital encroachment of e-commerce. Next slide, Jules. And as a part of today's webinar, after Steve and his team wraps up, if anybody wants to book a demo with Skynamo, if they do that before June of 2021, we're offering 3 months free on the system as well. And if you'd like more information, you can email josh@skynamo.com. So that's josh@skynamo.com. And with that, I will hand it over to Steve French.
I guess it helps if I'm not on mute. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate the intro into Skynamo and so on, and we're glad to be part of the session today. What I'd like to do is just give you a brief overview of who the Natural Marketing Institute is for those of you not familiar. Just 1 or 2 slides. Basically, what we do at NMI is help clients within the world of health and wellness and sustainability and so on, identify and validate new business opportunities. So we do all kinds of market research and strategic insights, have been doing so since 1990. We've also merged with a larger company, Research America, mid last year, which gives us a range of increased capabilities across the research spectrum. And what that basically means is we're one of the largest providers of sample for quantitative surveys, both on a B2B and a B2C perspective. We have sensory facilities in 2 cities. We have 5 focus group physical facilities, doing a lot of online now through the custom qualitative box there. We do a lot of quantitative studies. And what's really happened to us is we become data scientists. It's not the days of just doing a survey and looking at the results. There's lots of analytics that come behind it. And then the yellow circle is the add-on of the Institute to the existing Research America. So we have a number of different databases that we use that we've conducted over the year. So Julian, if you can, you're pretty good.
I've launched it.
We have, I think there's 5 different questions here. It may take a couple minutes, but we thought it would be interesting, and we'll share the results here. So the first question, your biggest challenges when marketing and selling supplements, and you can just check all that apply. But you can see a whole variety of different things. So just read through it, and whatever your first instincts are usually the best. It's actually one of the ways that we do research. We want top of mind. Don't overthink it. Then there's a second question there. A third. Fourth gets into new product formats and delivery systems and things like that. What you're currently doing in the previous question and what you're doing in the future. And then lastly, how you currently differentiate your products from competition. So if you could just take a minute or two and fill those out, and I'll let Julian decide when an adequate number have been completed. Meanwhile, I can certainly talk more about what's happening from a macro standpoint in terms of the dietary supplement industry on a global basis. And it's things that are not necessarily in the slides, but the nice thing about the industry on a global basis is that we've proved or proven over time that not only is the industry recession proof, as we saw back in 2009 timeframe, but it's also pandemic proof, as we saw significant sales increases in 2020. So that's a nice, it's a nice comforting thought to know that even during the very challenging times that we're having around the world, that we're in an industry that tends to rally and capitalize and meet the needs of consumers through the products and ingredients and so on that can be provided. So just some quick background while we go through the poll.
Sorry, I see there's an error with the poll, Steve. It's only allowing one answer for each question. So I've suggested that poll participants submit or choose the answer that is most relevant, rather than selecting the multiple answers.
Okay.
The form that they sell most of or mainly.
That's fine. That'll work.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you can continue, Steve. I think the poll will still run in the background while you continue.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's start off with the source of the data. I mentioned before that that NMI conducts large-scale global quantitative market research. This is done specifically, or this study is done specifically with consumers, although we do custom projects with healthcare and retailers and all kinds of B2B. So, but this study itself is called our Supplements OTC RX database. We shortened it to SORD, S-O-R-D. It is unquestionably the most comprehensive and robust data on the intersection of supplements, OTC, and RX. And a majority of the study is on supplements, but the rationale for including OTC and RX is based on the whole notion of share of stomach or share of solution. And what I mean by that, if a consumer has a particular health issue or medical condition that they're looking to solve, they have an unmet need. So they have a variety of different solutions. One could be supplements, one could be OTC, the others could be a prescription med. There's obviously lots of other things consumers could do, whether it's lifestyle or change in diet or some risky behavior reduction or whatever. But this specifically focuses in on the world of again, supplements, OTC, and RX. And we've been conducting the study. The information you're going to see today is from the U.S., but we've also conducted this in over 10 countries over the years. The research in the U.S. Has been done. You can see the years listed out there. We've been doing it since 2005. And a lot of the numbers I'm going to show you today were gathered in 2020. So what we do is we go out to 2,000 general population U.S. adults. And the reason that's important to mention is is that it's a nationally projectable sample of the U.S. population. So that means it's balanced back to census data. It is actually used by various U.S. Government agencies and so on. So it has the rigor and the comprehensive nature to meet their requirements. It's conducted online and covers a whole range of topics, as you can see in the red graphic on the left side. We're not going to, we could talk for 5 hours about all the learnings that we have in it, especially when you start looking at trended data. But we're going to focus in on a few areas of topics, and what we thought was the best approach, as the name of the webinar suggests, is we're going to walk through who, what, how, and where. So in terms of who, the objective there is to understand who the users are, who the non-users are, how to increase compliance and boost consumption. We're going to talk about the what, and what is not only products and solutions there, but also delivery systems and product formats. How is the notion of brand building and purchase drivers, for example, the importance of safety and sourcing and natural and organic. And then finally, we're going to end up where, which we refer to as the pathways to purchase, something that Josh mentioned before in terms of the role of e-commerce versus brick and mortar and things like that. So we're going to follow this format. So I have 4 section breaks here. First is the who. So the good part is you'll know that when I'm winding up. Again, we can take any questions you want. Just hit the Q&A function, and be more than glad to talk to them up to the top of the hour. So who's consuming supplements, and how do we boost consumption? Consumption is one of those things that continues to be an issue, not just within supplements, but across a variety of different products and so on. Mathematically, you could almost take the revenue of dietary supplements and multiply it times 4 or 5 if everybody complied to the recommended daily recommendations. And that can be one thing that Skynamo can talk to in-store personnel about talking to consumers about the importance of compliance and things like that. So what's happened over the past 5 years in the US, and this is, I'm going to start general and get more specific as we get into it. We ask consumers a statement. We ask them to, on a 5-point scale, taking a supplement is important to my overall health. You can basically see that 8 out of 10 Americans agree to that statement. And there's typically about 20% that are not in the health sector, whether that be supplements or natural or organic foods or whatever. Typically that other 20% is going through basic living challenges and struggles. But what's interesting about this chart here is if you look at the other statement, I believe I can manage many of my health issues by taking vitamins, minerals, and supplements. What's very interesting is that it's very high among the millennials. And about a decade ago, boomers were bigger in size than millennials, and they accounted for a majority of revenue within not only the dietary supplement category, but lots of other categories. So it was very important that we engaged this younger consumer, this millennial, within the category. And what's happened is we have definitely succeeded as an industry. And I'll show you that more when we get into the users. So this is their attitudes. They definitely believe that supplements can be part of managing their lifestyle. So when you look at current users of supplements in the US, we have about 77%. So that's almost 8 out of 10 consumers, which is a very large number, stating that they've used supplements in the past 30 days. We have a smaller number that are lapsed users. They used to use, but they haven't in the past month. And then we have a non-user group. If you look through some of the shaded areas and so on, you can see some things that pop out. The green is something that indicates a high index, meaning that it's more than 20% higher than general population. So a non-user is more likely to be male. They're more likely to be in the iGen group and so on. So there's some interesting things happening. If you just look at the current user, you can see that it's a little bit skewed towards female, but not compared to general population. The general population of the US is 52 female, 48 male. So it's pretty much replicating the rest of America. You see a good level of millennials, 39% of users are millennials and 37% are boomers. So there's definitely opportunities for that, the Gen X consumer to really get on board. So one of the other things we do is, regardless of what product category or service or geography or topic, not all consumers are the same. And you may see this within your household or family or friends or whatever it is, and I'm sure everybody would agree, is that when it comes to any topic, and in this case health and wellness, that no two consumers are alike. So what we do is we separate out the population. This is the Institute's health and wellness segmentation that we've been using for about 20 years. We separate them out into one of 5 mutually exclusive groups. So if you start with the well-beings, they represent about 30% of America. They are most health proactive. They are the first adopters, and then you can actually break that group down into 2 subgroups, which even give you more advantage. As we'll see later in the presentation, this group is more likely to shop in certain channels, including small independent natural health food stores and places like that. If you move clockwise, you can look at the food actives. They represent about 10% of America. They're more mainstream healthy. Then there's a very interesting group below in orange. They're the magic bullets. And they have a lower commitment to a healthy lifestyle. And the reason so is they are the unhealthiest group. They are also most likely to be taking supplements. So it's a very interesting group to speak to. And we'll see how they play out with some of the questions as we get through some of the subsequent charts. Another very opportunistic group on the bottom is the fence sitters, 24% of America. This is a group that has a much higher prevalence of kids. They tend to be a little bit younger, and they're the wannabes. They want to be more healthy, not only for them, but for their family. But they're looking for quick, easy solutions. Food and beverage is not always quick and easy. So supplements sometimes provide the answers. It's one of the areas where the growth of gummies basically really skyrocketed, especially due to household composition. And then we have a group in green there, the Eat, Drink, and Be Merries. They are not the least healthy. That's the magic bullet group. The Eat, Drink, and Be Merries are just less interested in being healthy. So the other point here is this is not a continuum. This is based on motivations to health and wellness. And you'll see how this plays out in some of my subsequent slides. So for example, if you take a look at the same numbers I showed you before, the 77% that are current users, the percent that were lapsed, and the percent that never used, you can break those out by the 5 health and wellness segments. There's a couple things that happen here. If you take a look at current users, you can see that almost 30% of current users are well-beings. You can also see that 30%, almost 30%, are magic bullets. So it's very interesting to focus and again thinking about selling and communicating and talking to consumers. It's very important with the role of in-store education and so on to figure out who you're talking to as soon as possible. Because you have one group, the proactive group, and you have the magic bullet group, which is the least healthy group. So they're almost at opposite ends of the spectrum. So the communication and the answering of questions and the merchandising mix and all the things that Skynamo offers and so on is vital to understanding what's going on here. So I think that's important to keep in mind, is knowing your consumer, and as they have particular questions on hey, what should I be using for this or this, you should be able to answer in the appropriate way. Are they somebody that are looking for something that's new and leading edge, or something that's been proven over and over again? So if we take a look at the trended use of supplements over time, if we go back to 2009, the purple line shows that same 77% in 2020 that I referenced on the past couple slides. The nice part about the looking at the historical nature here is that you can see that we basically have grown in the industry. Granted, it was a little bit flat from 2013 to 18, but it used to be only 62% of America use supplements. Now it's 77%. Definitely a significant increase. But what's more important is the teal line there. I guess the bluish lapsed user line, which has gone down from 26% to 9%. So we're getting a little bit more compliance as consumers are saying, okay, maybe I understand the benefits of the products that I'm using as opposed to before. So once we talk about the consumer and the percentage that are using and other metrics that I mentioned, it's also important to understand how and why their usage has increased. So if you look at the chart on the left, you can see that we ask consumers if their usage has changed over the past 5 years. About 2/3 say it stayed the same, but a significant amount, 27%, have actually increased their usage. Among those that have increased their usage, you can see the following reasons for why. And that is basically because they're more concerned about their health. They feel their needs are changing and they need more supplements. I mean, if you think about the millennials and so on, you know, they're over 40 now, or at least the older millennials. They're hitting a time that they're saying, well, you know, I'm not invincible anymore. Perhaps it's time to start thinking about my health, and supplements are a perfect way, at least for this generation, to use them more in a preventative manner, which is mentioned in the next statement. I'm taking a more active role in prevention. And then there's another group, which is probably more likely driven from the magic bullets. I have new health issues I want to manage. And as we see the aging of America and the aging of other populations around the globe, it is definitely important to note that the use of supplements is either for prevention or management, and the needs change there. So another thing to recognize on shelf and in store and e-commerce messaging and merchandising and so on. As we'll talk about a little bit later, the role of my doctor, my healthcare provider, is definitely important. And then we have the impact from COVID. You have 27% of those that have increased their usage stating that they've increased their usage to fortify my health against COVID. So we've seen some significant increases in category users come in. The key here will be to keep them. There's obviously a big function and focus on immune, but they're finding other products as they're saying, wow, this is a pretty cool category. Look at all the things that could possibly help me out. So it's very interesting as we continue to look at data over time and by age. If you get a little bit more specific to COVID, this is the percentage of America who agrees with the statement on the left on taking more vitamins or supplements specifically due to COVID. And you can see it's a pretty significant number. So that was a reason for increased revenue that I mentioned previously during the poll in 2020. That's why they outpaced food and beverage sales in totality and lots of other categories last year. Then the big number here that are taking more vitamins or supplements is this connection back to children. So that's always important to keep in mind, that a household that has children is more likely to be looking for healthier solutions. And that could be supplements, and that can be food and beverage, and that can be a whole variety of different things. But this notion of having a child in the household has this whole aura of bringing health and wellness. And the first thing or the same thing happens on the right-hand side. I started taking vitamins or other supplements specifically due to COVID, and the numbers are a little bit lower, but they're still rather impressive. 39% stated they first started taking And you can see how that breaks out by generation. Again, not a big difference between the 18 to 49-year-olds, but a little bit different in the 50 plus. But again, the children in household definitely pop. Now we look at non-users, and whereby they only represent a small portion. It's important to understand why, and main reasons for not using supplements. Consumers say, I just don't need them, which means they don't understand the benefits. And then just some basic things. Price is always an issue. Consumers will always say, well, they cost too much. Well, private label vitamin C doesn't cost you much if that's the only thing you can afford. Some people don't like taking pills and tablets. Well, there's lots of other formats and so on. But what would influence them more to begin using would be scientific proof, and that's linked with any clinicals. So having the proof of efficacy, the proof of safety is vital to not only continuing usage among users, but getting new users into the category. All right, let's move on to what? I think most of us would understand that multivitamins are the biggest category. They've grown 16% in the past decade. However, they are not representing the biggest amount in growth. The biggest amount of growth, and they're all basically similar, they're almost 100%. So they've doubled in usage, whether it be single vitamins, single minerals, or condition-specific supplements, which we define in the questionnaire. These are multi-ingredient formulas and so on that consumers are using for a specific health issue. So there's some nice growth rates here. So it's not just a multivitamin market anymore. The world of singles and condition specific are continuing to drive the market. Now, if you look at the top 20 or so products, and this is just tier 1, we measure about 80 different products in the survey work. So this represents the list that is used by supplement users that is at least higher than 10%. So you can read down the list. I mentioned multivitamins is number 1. You can see some single vitamins, D and C. There's been a lot of activity in vitamin D, which is basically on the endorsement of the National Institutes of Health, saying that's really the only nutrient that needs to be augmented, that typical American may not get in their diet, although that's not true in reality. Then you have calcium and fish oil, and you can see down the list, lots of things happening. And there's some interesting things on there like caffeine. All the activity, now that can tie back to some weight loss, it can tie back to a variety of different things, but then you see all the things related back to immune, whether that's vitamin C, or whether it's probiotics or zinc, and so on. So there's a multitude of products that consumers are using, but what's important is also to look at their growth. As I mentioned on the previous page, 19% of America, for example, is using probiotics. So it falls in the top 20 list, but it's up 407% since 2009. That growth is obviously phenomenal, only to be outdone by prebiotics, which is up 820%. You can see other areas that are going through some significant growth. some of which are new or to the market. You know, pre and probiotics are still relatively new, but you have you know, some good old favorites from decades and decades ago, like fiber and magnesium and aloe and iron and so on, that are experiencing significant growth. These numbers should be taken into account again when merchandising, again when talking about consumer opportunities. It can tie back to planograms and shelf sets and specific product categories that may not be represented appropriately either on shelf or within an e-commerce platform. So we go back to COVID for a minute. This is the percentage of America and various groups that state they're interested in learning more about immune boosting nutritional supplements. You can see, again, the numbers are similar to some of the other mentions from previous slides, but half of America, you know, 125 million people are saying that they're interested more about immune for COVID. And again, that spikes among households with children. So next we get into an area on product form, delivery system, whatever you want to refer to it as. As we all know, we live in a pill market. A pill market is, it dominates supplements, it dominates OTC, it dominates RX. So what we can see is a variety of things happening. Let's actually start on the right chart, the percentage of supplement users indicating which supplement product forms they prefer. And that goes back to my comment is we're dominated by pills, capsules, tablets, soft gels, chewables to a certain extent, and so on. But those areas with the strongest growth are not pills. Gummy growth is at 137%, and soft chews have the second strongest growth at 35%. And then there's lots of other types of formats that consumers are looking for, that some manufacturers and marketers have available in sublines, whether those be nutritional bars or liquids or ready to drink beverages or whatever it may be. So as you're looking for opportunities to say, okay, maybe we're reaching the point of pill burnout, and that's a chart on the left. The percentage of supplement users who prefer their supplements in other forms than pills and capsules. It used to only be 25% in 2011. It jumped up based on so many new products in 2018. But there's still, you know, about a third of America who says, you know, enough with the pills and capsules. I need something else. And that's why you see things like energy shots and gels and things like that starting to take off a little bit. So again, as you're in store talking to retailers and so on, don't forget that it's not just a pill market. That taking a look at other types of product formats are definitely opportunistic. And don't forget about the world of sustainability. Consumers would definitely buy a supplement if it uses more sustainable or environmentally friendly ingredients. We all know that this is an important factor. It used to be a nice to have, now it's a must have in terms of incorporating the role of sustainability really in any brand that is going out there. It ties back to a variety of different statements, which I'll get into in a couple pages. But almost 3/4 of America says knowing the source of ingredients is very important to their decision to purchase supplements. And so they want to know where things are coming from. before I get into some purchase drivers and so on, this whole notion of personalization, I think many of you would agree that it is the holy grail in terms of coming up with either a multi-pack or a single product, which could be a pill or a powder that has everything in it that I need, whether that's based on a blood test or based on just what my doctor thinks I need, or whatever it is. Consumers are saying, I would be interested in personalized multivitamins or a personalized supplement. This is appealing to the middle age group. So it's very interesting on what's happening there. And finally, we get into the where. So where are supplements purchased and what are the buying dynamics? I mentioned before that consumers are highly influenced on their decision to purchase supplements by their physicians or doctors. That has been number one for 20 years, and it will probably always remain number one. So don't forget about the role of the physician and doctor. That's also followed by the role of the pharmacist. And then we see very interesting things happening, like the importance of package labels. So having effective communication and so on in store is very important. Then there's all kinds of other sources of influence, and those can be people, which you can separate out, whether that be a spouse or a significant other, adult family member. There's a lot of informal types of influence happening here. I think some of us know that the number one source of influence among boomer women are other boomer women. That plays into the account here too. But then there's coupons and going back to the website, in-store displays, and then the role of social and other technology platforms. In terms of where consumers are shopping most, this is interesting to look at. There's 2 data points in each of these sub-channels. The lighter blue is shop in past 6 months. The purple is shop most often. And this is specifically for supplements. So if we look left to right, we can basically see that mass merchandisers like Walmart and Target are the number one place to shop in the past 6 months and shop most often. That's followed by drugstore or pharmacy, whether that be one of the big 3 or some of the regional ones that are still left. Then I think it's very interesting that traditional grocery is there, and that may be an untapped opportunity. We typically don't think that a grocery store would be the top place where consumers are buying supplements, but it is. In fact, it's very similar to the internet. Now the internet has grown much more than traditional grocery, but you can see how that breaks out a little bit. Then we get into some 2 other stronger channels, such as the natural channel, which we break down into some other categories on the right-hand side, and then warehouse and club stores. Don't forget about the 180 count Sam's Club assortments. And then the natural channel is broken down by natural food supermarket, GNC, health natural food store, and other nutrition store. You can see the numbers are smaller, but there's lots of points of distribution out there. And then you have convenience store and even doctor's office. It's one of the fastest growing areas in the entire market here is and especially once consumers start to return to the doctor's office. Now, what's also important has been what consumers' stated spending is going to change as we go through each location. And so if you look at the chart on the left, you see that the internet and shopping online is the highest in terms of increased spending. That's followed by mass merch, drug, and a traditional grocery store. You can see how that breaks down between more, same, less, and so on. Now, what's also interesting on the pink bars on the right is the percentage of supplement users indicating they plan to spend more in the future. The other was a year ago. This is in the future. So we're talking about more spending on the internet, and then not a lot of difference between some other stores or other brick and mortar locations typically, but there's some nice growth rates in there that we should all be happy to see. Now, another reason that the consumers shop in different channels are for specific reasons. I mentioned before that, you know, when you think of a grocery store, it's not the number one thing that comes to mind, but it's driven from the fact that at least pre-pandemic, consumers were shopping at the grocery store about 2.5 times a week. So it's based on frequency. So when they're in there, they're saying, "Oh yeah, I need vitamin C or whatever it is," and so they'll grab it. Drugstore is an obvious place to talk about convenience. It's close to where I live, and so on. But when you get into price, that's when the whole model changes. The best prices consumers are saying are warehouse clubs, followed by mass, followed by internet. So if you're talking about a price consumer, they are recognizing this channel migration. They may start in a GNC or the natural channel, but they will migrate eventually to either a warehouse club or an internet. You can see consumers that want more options. The best place to go is the internet, right? Although natural channel is pretty high too. But the point here is it's important to understand where consumers are shopping, but also why they are shopping particular channels. And I think we shouldn't forget the impact of store brands or house brands. I think everybody's affected by this. It represents both a challenge and an opportunity. You know, in some cases, we're selling ingredients, and one of my best webinars and so on is we don't sell ingredients, we sell benefits. And so we need to keep that in mind. You're not a vitamin C manufacturer, you're an immune buster or whatever you want to call it. But back to store brands a little bit, they're just as safe, just as effective. It's basically the same as national brands. I mean, there are a few that don't trust store brands, but that's a relative minority. So how? These are the product drivers that I mentioned before, and I'll run through this section quickly. If consumers are, these are the product attributes that consumers are saying are important. It's not just about safety and clinical and price, and but there's other things on here like easy to digest and swallow, and things like that. And there's other interesting things like not from China. So this is a very important page. Consumers are looking for products from natural and organic sources. Not all brands are the same. Some consumers are looking for products that are higher in product quality. Some are buying more on price. Some are buying due to loyalty, and loyalty is higher among the older consumers. So it's very interesting on how that breaks out. This I will leave for you to see, but it talks about what are some of the issues or concerns when taking supplements. The consumers are just saying, well, I'm not sure if they're doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not sure what nutrients my body actually needs, and things like that. And it varies across generation. So there's a variety of things happening here in terms of the who, what, how, where. Jan, if you get a couple questions, I think we have a couple minutes, and we can go from there.
Sure. The first question we had was, do you provide any insight or data for Canada? So can you speak to that, plus other countries as well?
Yeah, we conduct this study in, I think we're up to over 20 other countries. Canada has not been done recently, but we're looking at doing it this year or next. But it can be done on a custom basis and in a whole variety of things. But there are some similarities between the U.S. and Canada.
With respect to the slide about the growth in certain areas, and prebiotics had the top growth of any supplement, do you know how to analyze the significant growth of the prebiotics category?
How to analyze? Well, part of the reason the growth is so high was the usage was so small to begin with. So as we move from more importance on gut health and microbiome, and consumers are saying, well, I went down the probiotic route. Now I'm hearing all about this prebiotic. The growth is basically consumers are looking for new solutions, and we're looking at a variety of pre and pro combination products, which is helping drive the growth rates of both those categories.
And we do have several more questions, but we have time, I think, for one more. How has COVID affected supplement use trends?
Well, the biggest thing that COVID has done beyond keep the industry growing is that it's attracted new users. And if you look at a category that already has 70+% household penetration, to increase that is phenomenal. You usually don't increase it that much. So I would say that's the biggest thing that has come from COVID. The biggest challenge will be to keep those new users coming back post-COVID, and for them to understand that immune health is not just a pandemic behavior, that is something that's important year-round, pandemic or not, and that it's a source of wellness for now and the future.
So I want to thank everyone for all your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone, but we will reach out to you individually and answer them after the webinar. So thank you again. Julia?
Thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. I can tell just by the number of people that stayed on that people have found it very, very useful and informative. Again, if you'd like to get in touch with Skynamo, just visit skynamo.com. If you'd like to take advantage of our special offer, which Josh mentioned earlier, just email josh@skynamo.com.